Good evening, friends, and welcome to the Westport Library. To those of you here in person and everyone watching at home, thank you all very much for joining us for this very special program. My name is Bill Harmer, and I'm the library's Executive Director. Tonight, we are so thrilled to be partnering and sharing a stage with our good friends at the Aldrich Museum in Ridgefield. And in just a moment, you're going to meet Namilan Bayasaran, the museum's Director of Education. But before we do that, please enjoy this short video produced by our own Verso Studios at the Westport Library about the Aldrich and its current exhibit, Karla Knight, Navigator.
Hi, I'm Sibel Malone, the Executive Director of the Aldrich Contemporary Art Museum in Ridgefield, Connecticut. The museum was founded in 1964 by Larry Aldrich, a fashion designer and collector of contemporary art. We were one of the first contemporary art museums in the country and today are one of the oldest. We are located on Main Street in Ridgefield, and our 3-acre campus includes the Old 100, the original museum building, which is an 18th century general store and is now home to our administrative offices, a sculpture garden, and this, our new museum building, which was inaugurated in 2004 and includes galleries and a learning center. As a platform for contemporary artists at pivotal moments in their career and a non-collecting institution, there is always something new to see at the Aldrich. We are open and we very much hope you will come and pay us a visit. You can learn more about the museum and purchase tickets at thealdrich.org. I'm going to now turn it over to my colleague, the museum's senior curator, Amy Smith-Seward, to take you through the newest exhibition she's organized, Karla Knight Navigator, which is on view through May of 2022.
Karla Knight has spent the last 40 years channeling the unknown into a far-seeing visual language that defies explanation. Her enigmatic lexicon cannot be learned or retaught, and she offers no clues or methods to its decoding. For Knight, its true meaning must remain unnamed, as it is ultimately inspired by what she explains as the mysteries and absurdities of life. Driven by a profound interest in otherworldly possibilities, Knight developed an imagistic system about a creative journey of unlimited vision. After regularly exhibiting in New York City in the 1980s, Knight moved to New Mexico in 1994. She returned to the East Coast in 2000, settling in Rhode, Connecticut in 2003, where she has lived and worked for nearly 20 years. Her impressive 4-decade output spans paintings, drawings, photographs, and her latest experimentations, which she refers to as her tapestries. Intersecting biography and life experience with art history, science, and the occult, Knight's compulsion for other realms and realities began as a child. Her influences now orbit centuries and practitioners from both inner and outer circles. 20th century abstraction, surrealism, Native American art, Chinese calligraphy, extraterrestrial events, and the afterlife. Many of the works selected for the exhibition are being presented for the first time. Others have rarely been seen, and some haven't been shown since their first appearance. This focused survey, her first institutional exhibition, navigates the vast range and advancement of Knight's pictographic glossary, the spaceships, floating orbs, and all-seeing eyes, as well as the logographic and alphabetic elements, charts, and other invented signs that embody her teeming all over compositions. It also debuts her newest body of work, tapestries made from reclaimed cotton cut from circa 1940s to 1950s seed and grain bags. Pieced and sewn together, Knight draws and paints onto the surfaces with flash, colored pencil, acrylic marker, and graphite, hand embroidering select sections. Their grounds exhibit signs of staining and mending, visual markers left from their previous life use. Knight's paintings, drawings, and tapestries swirl with graphic shapes, diagrams, and ciphers that appear both archaic and space-aged. Some imagery is instantly recognizable, lifted from familiar sources, but others are more mysterious, outtakes of Knight's elusive imagination. Like the trailblazing women abstractionists making art in the first half of the 20th century, Hilma af Klint, Agnes Pelton, and Paulina Peavy, Knight's mystical abstraction channels cosmic territories.
Good evening, everyone. I am Namulan Bayar-Sehan. I am the Education Director at the Aldridge Contemporary Art Museum. I want to take a moment to thank Bill Harmer, Alex Giannini, David Bibby, and everyone at Westport Library for hosting us this evening and partnering with us on tonight's talk. I'm so pleased to welcome Karla Knight and Roz Chast to you all this evening. And I want to make a quick mention that we have Roz Chast's Aldridge editions for sale in the library. And my colleague Jamie Pearl is over there, so take a peek after the talk. Karla Knight was really pivotal in helping us put together this program, so I want to make a shout out to Carla for helping us put this together. Roz Chast was born in Brooklyn, New York, and attended Rhode Island School of Design, graduating with a BFA in painting in 1977. Her cartoons and covers have appeared continuously in The New Yorker since 1978. She has published several cartoon collections, an autobiography, a Manhattan Illustrated Guide, and has written and illustrated several children's books. She has won numerous awards and includes the National Book Circle Award, the New York City Book Award, and the National Book Award. The editor at The New Yorker, David Remnick, has called her the magazine's only certifiable genius. Roz is represented by Carol Corey Fine Art in Kent, Connecticut. Karla Knight was born in New York City and also attended the Rhode Island School of Design, receiving her BFA in painting in 1980. Karla's work has been widely exhibited in numerous exhibitions, including solo and group shows, and her work is in the collection at the Museum of Modern Art, the Brooklyn Museum, the Walker Art Center, and more. She has received numerous honors, including MacDowell, Yaddo, and 2 Connecticut Artist Fellowships. Karla is represented by Andrew Edlin Gallery in New York City, and as we just shared in the video that you watched, her exhibition is currently on view at the Aldridge Contemporary Art Museum. So without further ado, please welcome Karla Knight and Roz Chast.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you all for coming out. I guess we're going to start talking about some...
Yes, we're going to start at the beginning at RISD.
Yeah. Yes, we both attended RISD at sort of similar times. This is,
Baby me.
it's a wonderful picture. Sort of a little sullen.
Little pissed off.
Yeah.
That is my junior year RISD ID that I actually kept all these years. So I was at RISD from 76 to 80. Roz, I was a freshman when you were a senior, I think.
Yeah, well, I think we overlapped
Right.
1 year. Were
Right.
you always a painting major? Did you?
Oh, yes, definitely a painting major. By the time this photo was taken, I mean, I had been at RISD for 2 years. I was already ready to go.
Yeah.
You know, and you can see it on my face. I was kind of pissed off.
Yeah.
And I remember I wanted to take a year off, and my parents wouldn't let me. So I schemed, and I spent my last year in Rome on the Rome program.
Yes.
So that's how I
Yes.
sort of segued out of Providence, which I was very sick of. But so let's see Roz's.
This was, I don't,
This is so RISD.
it's just embarrassingly RISD. I did not know what happened to my ID, but I was telling Carla beforehand that my hair has never been that short before or since.
Or
And
since.
what happened was I had this friend, and this is such a RISD story, I had a friend named Seymour, and we went to see The Man Who Fell to Earth, the David Bowie movie, and I said to Seymour, cut my hair just like David Bowie's. And he'd never cut hair before.
So this is like 76, 77?
This was, yeah. And because this was in the yearbook. And it was so horrible that the next day I had to go to actual hairdresser and sort of go back to square one, like just chop it all off and sort of start from the beginning. But yeah, this was what was in the yearbook. And that little wheel thing, I think was, I don't know, I found it. I think it was something to do with a clothesline, and the rope kind of went around it, and then people, I don't know, clipped clothes to it or something.
But we've talked about RISD and how we felt there.
How did you feel about RISD?
The first 2 years were fun.
Yeah.
Anybody go to RISD here? Anybody? Summer. Okay. Well,
did any of you guys go to art school? Because art school is a whole thing in itself, don't you think, in a way?
It is. It's sort of silly, art school.
Yeah.
It's sort of pointless. And by the time I was in that photo in my junior year, I'd realized it was silly, and I wanted to, get out. There's really nothing they can teach you.
Yeah.
They can't teach art, I don't think. So.
The best art classes I ever took were not at RISD. They were at the Art Students League in New York. And
was that after RISD or was it
before?
high
It was
school?
when I was in high school. And the first Saturday of every month, they had figure drawing that was open to the public. And you paid, I forget what it was, and you went with your big, 18 by 24 newsprint pad and a box of charcoal.
And your like binder thing that you clipped it to.
Yeah, right, with that
And your
bulldog,
charcoal.
that whole thing, and the kneaded eraser.
Yes.
And that was the greatest, because got to draw the live model and different poses, and it was like, oh my God, they're naked. The women were actually completely naked. The men were not. The men wore like this little weird, like a little bag kind of thing over their.
But the women were completely naked.
The women were completely naked.
So wow.
And they were all different types of bodies. Like they were like young people. They were like older people. They were, and the poses would start. There were like 10-minute, 5-minute, 15-minute poses. Then there were like 30 seconds where it'd be, this, that, change.
There was a name for that. Croquis? Was it croquis? It was something like that. The really quick.
Oh, I don't know if they had like a name.
Quick.
Yeah, the quick where you just and I had a wonderful teacher, this Andrew Lukash, and he could, take some lame, awful drawing and then just kind of come over and like erase this and.
So did those drawings help you get into RISD and like your portfolio to apply?
I think that they helped me with everything, because with cartooning I have to draw people all the time.
Right.
So
and quickly, and just get the essence of somebody doing something, and that definitely helped. But RISD was just, especially when you were a little bit later than me, I felt like it was just so theoretical, and they didn't teach us anything.
No.
They didn't teach us how to be an artist out in the world.
No, certainly not.
They never said a word about what to do when you got out.
No, nothing about that. I learned how to use a ruling pen. That was really a thrilling thing. Totally useful skill.
Yes.
Yes. And
the RISD bar was fun. Remember the tap room?
Sure, the tap room. Absolutely.
And it was actually the fun thing about the '70s at RISD was the music.
Yes.
Because it was a great time for music and the Talking Heads. And disco and punk and you could still drink.
Yes, if you were 18, you could drink.
And you
do
could
other
have
things
50-cent beers at the tap room and dance to the B-52s, and it was fun.
Wonderful bars in Providence, really.
Yes.
Crazy scene.
Did you get sick of Providence too, though?
I was just sick of being in school. I had that feeling too, that at a certain point it was sort of silly, and when I was there, they definitely did not have cartooning as a major.
So you didn't think about illustration as a major?
I partly was asking you whether you started out as a painting major, because I started out as graphic design, and then I went to illustration, and then I went to painting.
Oh, all right. So
and I was
worked your
really
way
not
around.
a painter. But
Why?
I was living with painters, and it seemed very artistic.
And they were the fun ones.
They were the fun ones,
Yeah, they were the fun
and
ones.
you know, they talked about color and the picture plane and push and pull and Hans Hofmann and you know all that. And you know, they just looked sort of great with the paint all. You know, there was just cartooning. I think that when I was at RISD, cartooning was very much not. It was kind of looked down on. I mean,
Really?
Oh, absolutely. It's very different now, but at the time it was like. There were many things wrong with it. For one thing, it was representational to some extent. For another thing, which was bad.
Right.
Very bad.
Yes. Yes, it was bad.
Then also, and this is like, I can almost not say this because it's so embarrassing, you were like trying to get people to laugh. I mean, what could be more pathetic, right?
Blatantly asking for...
Blatantly
yes,
asking,
yes,
you know, rather than like...
Yeah.
I have a friend whose daughter is a cartoonist, and there's a certain kind of art where it's like a pipe like leaning against the wall, and she calls that pondering art. So at RISD, there was a lot of pondering art.
Yeah.
And cartooning is like the opposite of pondering art, you know? It's if the joke isn't coming through, you have failed. Whereas like if you're doing this kind of work, especially in the 70s, where somebody gets it, you have failed.
So were you at home, like in your ratty, you know, Providence apartment, making?
I gave up drawing
secretly?
cartoons for the only time of my life because it was so frowned on.
Wow.
But then in my senior year, I started doing it secretly.
Secretly, yes.
Yeah.
And then you marched off.
And then I marched. It was like, finally, this is done. And now, look, Mom, got the bachelor degree.
Yeah. Did they ever ask you back to talk?
They have, yeah. But it's different now because now cartooning is less despised. So, yeah. Funny how that happened.
But they didn't, it always seemed to me that art school was sort of silly, and the main point of it, other than to meet people that you met and helped you later on with your career, your peers. The other thing to do was, as a painter, was to just not believe anything they said to you.
Yeah.
And develop a thick skin because they would shoot down whatever you did, and if you didn't learn how to do what you wanted to do, you were.
Yes. Did you do paintings of the kind that you're doing now when you were at RISD?
No.
What kind of stuff were you doing at RISD?
I painted, I guess when I was at this surly, junior, I was painting 8-foot-tall self-portraits. So I guess that, I don't even remember. I think I remember them telling me I was bad with color. Those, do you still have any of your...
crits?
Yeah, the crits. You're bad with color. I think that's
Oh,
what
my
they said to me.
God. Yeah.
I can't even remember. It was not good, though, and I was like, fine, I'm going to Rome. Leave me alone.
The crits were traumatic. Crits are like where you put your work up on the wall.
Yes, and the object of the teacher and everyone else is to tear down what you're doing, and for you to defend it and to fight for yourself, and basically say, screw you, I'm going to do what I want to do and what's.
And I think that's one of the things about going to art school that for me was the most valuable.
It taught you how to do it. Hopefully you learned how to do that.
Yes, and it taught me that I was going to do this even if people didn't like it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Which is a sort of interesting and worthwhile thing to learn. It was a weird. For me, it was the first time because we talked also about being the class artist.
When we were little kids.
When did you realize that you were going?
I was in first grade, and I have a memory very clearly of sitting. I can see myself at my table, and kids asking me to make drawings for them, and I knew, I knew right then.
You knew, and
Yeah, and it was always painting too. There was never any doubt. My father wanted me to do graphics because he thought there was money in that, but.
Yeah.
But I was like, no. So it was always painting for me, and from early on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you?
It was first grade, probably before.
Okay.
It was really the only thing I liked to do.
Were you recognized as being good at it?
Yeah, in first grade, for the same kind of thing, like kids asking you to draw something. And I remember in second grade, there was a drawing, the teacher had a drawing contest. And I can't even remember what I drew, but I won it. And what I won was she had in her drawer, like if you wear your sweater over your shoulders, like it was like a little chain. That it was like for like old ladies,
That's really weird, really.
Yeah, I had Mrs. Dubron. It was like this little weird old lady chain.
And
for like,
this is in Brooklyn?
This was in Brooklyn, yes.
Right.
So that was
Cool.
definitely...
Did you keep it forever?
I wish I still had it. I can picture it. Because it came in like this like rectangular box with like a clear top, and I remember like, what is this?
She probably thought it was very
Yes, very special. She took it out of her drawer and she gave it to me. So,
well. So tell us how you basically showed them at RISD. You went right off, and you went to New York, and I had always, well, since I was about 12 or 13, I wanted to be a cartoonist. There were just a lot of sort of threads that came together in cartooning in a very unique way. There was, it was drawing, it was writing, and I want to get into some of that with your work also. I mean, it's one of the many things in your work that I love. Oh, yes, this is a cartoon, relatively recent cartoon here. It was drawing, it was writing, and it was also, doing the hateful thing of like hopefully making a joke. And that's... groveling for like laughs.
Yes, please, So, I got together a portfolio of stuff, and I graduated in 77, and was living in my parents' apartment and started making trips in Brooklyn, and started making trips into Manhattan, taking a portfolio around. And I was starting to sell a little bit to the Village Voice and to National Lampoon. And I thought, in my wildest dreams, my dream was to actually be a cartoonist for the Village Voice.
That was your dream?
That was my dream, because they published Jules Pfeiffer and Mark Allen Stamety and Stan Mack, and I felt like that's where my work fit in, because it wasn't really underground and it wasn't really like gag cartooning. It was some other odd niche, and that was like the closest thing to where I thought I could fit in. But then in April of 78, I thought, well, my parents subscribed to the New Yorker. I should give them a try. There weren't, at that point, there weren't too many outlets, for cartoons.
So RISD never taught you what to do. So what did you do? You went up to their office? And...
I called them up, and at the time, I found out when they had a drop-off day, which was when people submitted cartoons over the transom, sort of, if you didn't know, if you were like an unknown person, you went into the slush pile and you took all of your cartoons. I didn't know what to do. I had about 60, I had a bunch of cartoons. I didn't know, is this like too many? Is this not enough? I just sort of guessed and put them all in an envelope. And I didn't think they were going to take anything anyway, because my stuff didn't look anything like the New Yorker stuff. But I thought I should try.
Right.
And
Did
when
you
I went
know
back,
enough to be frightened?
No, I didn't.
Just like marched in there?
I just marched in, and I just dropped them off. I did not know that William Shawn was the editor. I didn't know who was the cartoon editor or the art editor. I knew nothing. And when I went back the next week, instead of a rejection note, there was a note from Lee Lorenz asking me to come back and see him. And I still was sure that it was going to be a meaningless sort of encounter of like, well, maybe when you're better or not so terrible, why don't you come back and try again, But no, they bought a cartoon, and he said to start coming back every week.
And you were 23?
I was 23.
Wow.
And then they put me under contract at the end of the year. Oh, I remember he said that Shawn really liked my work, and I had no idea who he was talking about. I thought it was the first name of somebody, like Sean Connery, but he said it in a way that made me think this was a good thing, so I was like, good, that's good. You know?
And so how jealous was everyone else around you?
When you're 23, you just don't know. I was terrified of everybody because it was all guys and they were all old, as in like 10 years plus older than me, in their 30s to their like millions. And I just wanted to get in and out as fast as I could. And they were just all men's, they were just manly men's with the jackets and.
And what was your first cartoon? What was it about?
It was the weirdest of the lot. It was very personal. In fact, it actually has, I wish I had included it because it sort of has some overlap with the stuff that imagery in your work. It was called Little Things, and they were these weird little sort of made up shapes. And then I would give them,
that's me.
Boy, that's you. Yeah, but oh boy, it's amazingly, there's a real overlap. And they were made up shapes and made up names for the shapes. And it was the kind of doodle that I do that makes me laugh, or like if I were going to pass a note, like if we were like a serious lecture about like, I don't know, like ecology or something, and then I would want to make you laugh, I would say like, okay,
look at this.
This thing, it's a chint, it just, but then, so they bought it, and when they ran it, some of the old guys were like so angry, and one of them asked Lee Lorenz whether he owed my family money.
Right, or who did you sleep with?
Yeah,
There's
exactly. Yeah, oh God. So anyway, but your imagery, tell me about this.
Oh, God. This is called Fantastic Universe, More Than You Know. And it's the big tapestry in the Aldrich show. It's one of the first ones I made. And it's got all my stuff in it that I like to make. Eyeballs and my imaginary language and my spaceshipy shapes and my... I don't know, all of it.
And it's on these textiles.
Yes, these are done on. They're called seamless feed bags that are used in the Midwest for grain and feed and rice. Sometimes big sacks of farm stuff. And so you can see that they're usually, one of those panels is about 20 by 40 inches, and that's the size of the bag. I cut them in half.
How big is this piece?
It's like 120 by 75 or so. And then I sew the bags together, and they have all these different, depending on the bag and the age of the bag, there's slight discolorations, and they have the kind of ticking stripes in them and different subtle color differences, and so you see age spots, and sometimes you see printed letters and numbers on them. So I sew them all together, and I make a whole huge surface, and then I start painting and drawing and sewing all my stuff on it. First, I do there it is in the install shot. These are. I should say that there's a detail, so you can really see the imaginary language here.
They're so beautiful in person. They're really
they're
amazing.
super fun to make. I love making them. I sit there like happily making them for hours. The shapes are painted with a paint called Flash, which artists love. It's a great sort of yummy, buttery acrylic kind of paint.
How does it differ from regular acrylic paint?
It's more buttery. It's kind of.
You don't have to mix it with a medium? Or?
No, and it's matte. It's not shiny at all. It's just a lovely consistency, and the colors are gorgeous.
Yeah, I love the color.
Yeah, and the for instance, the red graph drawing there, those are acrylic pens. So once I found those and the black lines, it enabled me to do the kind of imagery that I like to do with, often with stencils, but it made me able to make a line that I wanted to make. And then you can sort of see the last thing that I do are the embroidery sections, which is very simple embroidery. Really, it's just running stitch. You do like all sorts of weird stitches. I just do running stitch at this point, anyway. But they are influenced by Lakota winter counts. Does anyone know what they are? They are in, Native American art. They are basically made by Plains Indians, the Lakota Sioux. And they're called winter counts because they're basically calendars and historical records of the tribe's lives. And they'll make one character per year and often start from the outside and go in a spiral ending in the middle of a large piece of muslin or sometimes an animal hide. Namulin, there's a winter count slide if you can find it. And so they'll do a character per year, maybe of a harvest or a celestial event or a war or a death or something important, and it chronicles the whole lives of that tribe. And I've always loved them, and they're on this muslin color that I love to work on. So I searched around and I found these bags and created my own surface. Sort of like the Lakota counts, and went on from there. And I just started making them when I was offered the show at the Aldrich.
Really?
I just made one very early sampler one where I was trying out all my techniques to see what worked. There it is. It's the very first one I made. Yeah, that's about this big. And you can see me just like trying out pencils and different pens and different paint and some embroidery. And just practicing to see what worked on that fabric. And I had just made that when Amy Smith Stewart came to the studio and offered me the show at the Aldrich.
Wow.
And I had about a year to work, and I knew the size of the museum and how big the walls were that I was going to have. So I just ran with the whole idea and made all these big ones that evolved. There's a triptych that's huge. There's 3 like 85 by 75 inch ones, and the one we just looked at. So the show really gave me the opportunity to run with a new idea with textiles, which for me was very new and different.
How much, when you work on something like this or like the triptych, do you do preliminary drawings?
I do, mostly, although they do change occasionally. There's the triptych. That's called the Wayfinder triptych, Wayfinder 1, 2, and 3. Yes, I definitely, there's even a drawing in the show of one of these 3, I can't remember which one, but you can see that I, once that black flash paint is on there, there's no changing it, you're done if you don't like it. So yes, I have a good idea where those things are gonna go. Well, that's a drawing from the show. And then I go from there. Even something like this, I plan out a bit ahead of time. At least I plan out where my black shapes are going to be, and then I start to noodle around beyond that. But in this one, you can really see the language.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask you about, because when I saw the show, that was one of the things that struck me, that you have these lists.
Yes.
Could
yes,
you
all
talk
the way
about
up
that,
in
those
the
a little
corner
bit?
there.
I love them. They're just
well,
wonderful.
like you, I want to be a writer as well. I mean, painter was number 1 on the list, but writer was, and especially poet, was number 2. So in a quest to let all the sides of me live, I put my kind of poetry lists in these drawings. And Namulin, if you can get the close-up of the corner there, they actually rhyme. And there's always, they're kind of phrases that I find in books or that I make up and that I think sort of describe the human condition a bit. And I'll often leave numbers on the end there because who knows what comes next. So
Do you have a book where you have like your favorite
I do.
symbols?
I do. I have like, list books and yes. Yes. So yes, I love to involve writing in the work as well.
Yeah, I would love to see a close-up of that list.
Can we get the close-up, Nambulin? It's the yellow slide with the writing in the corner.
This is
No?
no, maybe not.
But the imaginary language has been going on in my work for 20 years now.
How did it start?
It was my son Henry. He was learning to read, and he was 5, I guess. And you know how kids, when they're like learning to read and write, they make letters and they screw them up and they transpose them and they enter the world of written language in whatever weird way they're going to do.
Yeah.
And I watched him do that, and it was fascinating, and I thought it was very free and very cool, and just, he didn't know what he was doing, and it was very refreshing. So I thought, why can't I make up my own imaginary alphabet? Why not? Who's to stop me? So I started to do that. And in the show, there's a vitrine with some of my journals. And you can see, actually, I think it was 1999, just when I was I have some little pictures of Henry's where he was doing his letters. And me thinking through my very first made-up language. And that's how it started, and it just evolved from there. And it's basically evolved over 20 years, so now it's just like a real thing to me.
But you said that Jerry Saltz keeps asking you I don't know if you guys know who Jerry Saltz is. He's the art critic for New York Magazine, and he also posts a lot.
He calls you a national treasure.
Oh, that's true.
Roz is a national treasure.
National treasure.
Yes.
No, I couldn't possibly.
Jerry is always asking me, where's the key? Where's the he wants to know if there's any meaning to my language, and I always tell him there is none. It could be complete gibberish. So anyway, so this is one of your embroideries.
Yeah, I started doing these.
I totally relate to that.
I started doing these embroideries during when the pandemic. Well, I was doing embroideries before the pandemic, but
when did you start them?
a few years ago. I mean, I've always kind of done like odd crafts things on the side, but there's a specific sort of thing that overlaps a little bit with when you like those muslin feed bags.
Yes.
The thing that I'm involved in right now is I got these books of, I have many of them, not just one, books of fabric samples that they have from
big books.
Yeah, those big books from like upholstery stores or
and that's where you get the fabric.
Yeah, and sometimes they get discarded and they just want to throw them out, and I go through them, and most of them, I'd say 90% has no use for me, but I use them as backgrounds, and I use them to see whether they will suggest any image.
And you often let the background pattern.
Sure.
You leave it. It's a.
Like in this one, there was like that white space where I put the woman, but all of the background greenery was printed on the fabric, and then I embroidered all this other stuff on top of it.
Right. I totally relate to that. That's my husband, who likes to go outside and sleep outside, and would happily sleep out in the dark every night. Oh, and I'm like, there are ticks out there.
There's ticks.
Walk to the studio, walk back. And,
ticks, bears, snakes, falling branches. I mean, there's just like, why ask for trouble?
Ghosts, creepy people, everything.
Could we see another embroidery? Okay, this is the most recent one I did.
That's so great. You're like a painter with the embroidery.
I really, really love it because I do love color. But this one, the original background,
you can really see.
It looked like the sea floor to me, kind of like wavy brown. You can see it around the edges. a little bit where he's standing.
His face is like that. It's like that shape thing in your RISD thing.
Yeah. And I looked on the internet to see, I had this image in my head of an old-fashioned sort of deep sea diver suit, which to me there's something just so melancholy about them. I don't know. They're so heavy, and I guess also when I was a kid I used to watch Diver Dan and Tigger and these weird puppet fish, and I don't know, something
So how big is this?
12 by 12 inches.
And are they mostly 12 by 12?
Yeah, they're mostly 12, because they're all from these fabric sample books. Maybe another embroidery.
There's a real positive, negative thing that goes on in these, a spatial thing that I love, the way the fabrics shine through. This one too.
This one was one of the first ones I did during the pandemic. And really the background doesn't show too much in this one. And I know, the background actually does, because I was looking through the book and I couldn't figure out what to do. And that white cross thing was part of the fabric, and I realized it was a window, or it could be a window.
Real positive, negative thing, that's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of that odd stuff. And this actually became a New Yorker cover, and it's not the right proportion, so they did crop it. It's the second embroidery cover I've done for them, and the only 2 embroidery covers they've ever had.
Wow.
I think they don't want any more embroidery covers.
Why?
Because it is really sort of nuts. But one funny detail about the cover was that David Remnick got a little creeped out by her empty eyes. So they photoshopped some black dots to make like eyeballs.
Did they ask your permission?
Yeah, they did. Oh, absolutely. And I was like, well, okay, you know.
What stitch? Well, like take me through the technique that you use.
Most of the fill stitch. Well, first I have to have an idea.
Right.
That's suggested by the fabric. Then I use a blue. I have a fabric pen, and I draw the. Just checking time. Oh my God! It's getting later, and then we're going to do. Okay. I'll just finish this.
So you do your black you do your lines in the black.
Yeah, and then and it's a fabric pen, so it washes out. And then I do it in black thread when I get that all set. And then the fill stitches, a lot of it is chain stitch. There's a little bit of satin stitch. There's some French knots.
Did you know how to do that, like from childhood, or did you make it up?
Yeah, I had a 6th grade teacher who taught us how to embroider, because we had to.
And you remembered it?
Yeah, I did. I just kind of, and I love working with color. So.
And isn't sewing sort of relaxing?
It is. Once I get the drawing, then it's relaxing, and I listen to books.
Yes, or I sit there on the couch and watch like Succession.
Succession. Oh, I couldn't watch Succession. Succession demands a full.
You told me to watch it. I started watching
good.
it, so now I'm like sitting there embroidering watching.
Yeah. So this one was just like shadows and buildings, because the blue is part of what was the original thing. But anyway, I feel like we should open. I
love this. I want to.
Okay, yes, because the blue. Yes,
blue. Everybody loves blue, right?
Yeah, blue.
Who doesn't love blue?
Yeah, and this is back to your wonderful language and these shapes. And
this is a blue Navigator from the show. It's pretty big. It's, 75 by 50 or something like that.
Wow. And is this that flash paint or something?
You know, this thing, I mean, you can see where I sewed the bags. It's the same bags we looked at before.
Oh my
And then
God.
I dyed it with some sort of fabric dye. And then I thought, that's okay, but I'm not crazy about it. So then I added a very thin layer of this must have been cobalt or ultramarine blue flash on top of that. So it's several layers, the background, of different very thin dyes or paints.
Did you use like a wax resist thing for the white area?
No, that's acrylic marker pen.
Wow.
Acrylic pens. They're basically acrylic paint, with a nib, and it, you find the right thickness, and depending on how many coats I gave it, either it gets to be whiter or lighter blue. And then there's again, my embroidery is very simple. It's just a running stitch there. But you can definitely see the imaginary language there. And you can see me messing with language, which I like to do. I grew up with a German mother, with a very German upbringing. And one of the little jokes I like to make in work is I like to mess with umlauts.
It's very umlaut.
Put them in the wrong
for sure.
place, and at the bottom where they're not supposed to be, or in a letter where they shouldn't be. So you'll see me messing with language, actual language like that. But a lot of it is just the made-up language that I made over those years.
Yeah. Don't you love the O with the slash through it?
Yes.
It's such a great thing.
And I've had Chinese people say to, and my son who speaks Mandarin, a lot of them look like Chinese characters, though I don't know that, it's not something I plan that way.
To me, it looks like an imaginary sort of other planetary, and we didn't even get to talk about UFOs. But
well, my work is very otherworldly.
it is.
It is.
Well,
It
I think
is.
we should take some questions, maybe?
Is it question time?
I think it might be question time.
If anybody has questions here in the library, please come up to this microphone and speak into it for the folks at home to be able to hear you. I'll read any questions that come in from Zoom, but you can now discuss the starships that you were about to talk about.
I grew up in a household where the paranormal was very normal, and my father was very interested in the occult and poltergeists and UFOs, and he wrote books about them for kids, and my family used to do the Ouija board a lot, and I grew up with a family, at least on his side, who thought there were other realms and realities that we could not see, and to me that was very normal. So it very much influenced the work, always, even early on. So you see the spaceship imagery, the imaginary language. A lot of it looks, science-y. My father wrote science books. I'm married to a science teacher, but I was never any good at it, so I made up my own science.
Yes.
And I think the same is true about math,
Yes.
which I was never any good at either. So if I wasn't good at something, I would make up my own.
It seems like a very reasonable response.
Why not?
Yeah,
Who's to stop
completely
me?
understand it.
Yes. Ask me questions about otherworldliness. Anybody?
Yes, my question is for Roz. I'm wondering if you can suggest an app for an aspiring cartoonist.
Oh my God.
Well, I use something called Sketchbook Pro.
What's that?
I use it on my iPad, and most people I know use Procreate, but I like this one. This is the one I learned on. This is Pigeon Little. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. Oh, look, part of a bagel. This is my life, I think. But yeah, I like Sketchbook Pro.
My question is for both of you. Are you currently accepting collaborations, and have you done any in the past?
I've only done collaborations with my son. When he was 4, he started drawing aliens. And I was like, excellent. So I asked him if we could make some drawings together, which to me meant he would draw aliens and then I would paint something on top of his alien, some weird object. And the paintings are actually in the show at the Aldrich. They're called Aliens and Objects. But that's the only collaboration I've ever done. And I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I tend to be very solitary and in my own little world.
And I've done collaborations. I kind of enjoy it. I've done children's books and humor books and illustrations for somebody will write the text and I'll do the pictures. And I have a writing partner that I work with a lot. Her name is Patricia Marks, and I've done a number of children's books with her, and I'm working on a children's book right now. called Tired Town, and it's about Tired Town, and it's basically a go to sleep little, for the kids' books, like why don't you just please go to sleep now kind of book.
Is this for your grandbaby?
It could very much be, because this is a
Roz
little
has a
girl.
little granddaughter.
Yeah, I have a new little. She's 1 year old. She's really cute. She's the cutest kid in the world.
She started walking or something.
She started walking. She walks like a drunk. It's hilarious. It's just, oh my God. So yeah, that's some collaboration.
I'm going to jump in because we have somebody at home who asked, would you two ever collaborate?
Ooh, there's a question. Wow.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
I would if you would.
Sure.
Sure, yeah.
Good question.
Yeah.
Hi, this question is for Roz. To what extent would you say you were either influenced by or may have influenced the other cartoonists that lived in the Connecticut area, Mort Walker and Stan Drake, I think it was, and there were a number of them. I mean, your humor and your cartoons are very different from the Beetle Bailey type of cartoon, but how does that fit in with your historical journey?
I don't know if Connecticut really has that much to do with the kind of work that I do, but I like Connecticut.
I have to say that through all the years of raising my kid, we had your cartoons on the fridge, all the embarrassing parents ones
Yes.
that I would relate to, the bad moms and all that stuff. The years you spent in the burbs raising your kids.
Yes, there are definitely some aspects. The police log is always a source of humor.
Yes.
And learning to drive, and which I learned when we moved out here, because we lived in New York, lived in Manhattan, and then we moved to Park Slope, and I had never learned how to drive because I grew up in Brooklyn, and then I was in Providence, and then came back to New York, and just sort of like, guess I'll just never have to learn. Oh, that's too bad. And then, suddenly I'm here in Connecticut and with 2 kids, and I had to learn at 38.
Gotta bring the snack to the thing.
So
Great. So Paula at home asks, what advice do you have to tap into and channel your creativity? Is your art studio at your home, or do you travel to a studio?
My art studio is currently at my home. I've certainly lived in New York in the past and had studios all over the city, basically. But now it's at home, and it's been there for 20 years. What was it? How do I tap in? Oh, man, I just follow my unconscious wherever it goes, all day long, every day.
Yep.
What else would I do?
Yeah, exactly. What choice do we have?
No, really nothing.
No. I work at home also, and I don't know. Deadlines are horrible, but I think that they sort of give me some sort of structure. So, yeah.
Hi. So I spent a lot of time in Providence going to school uphill from you guys a few years before you were there.
To Brown?
Yeah, but I took classes at RISD. I was an art major.
Good for you.
And so Edward Corin, who Roz obviously knows, was one of my professors. So I wondered, did your paths ever cross?
Oh, sure. Ed's a good friend.
At the same time, or?
Yeah. Oh, not at RISD, but we're friends. We've been friends at the New Yorker for decades.
Was he teaching there when you were there?
He taught printmaking. He actually has a whole background in printmaking.
It wasn't like he was teaching cartooning at that point. No.
Yeah, no. He taught a lot of printmaking, I think, primarily. But, he was certainly doing, I think, New Yorker cartoons at that time. So.
I went to school with Madeline Sorrell.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
She was in my grade. Her dad is...
Yeah, Ed Sorrell.
Yeah.
He just had a book of stuff come out.
Yes. My advice to my son my son went to Brown as well, and my advice to him when he went was like, go down the hill, Go find some RISD kids and go to their parties, because that's where the fun is, especially the Halloween parties.
So were the RISD tappers there when you were there?
Yes, yes. Oh my God, did you know the RISD tappers?
Well, we used to go to the shows.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, we probably had similar crossed paths about all those things.
Yeah.
And Providence has a lot of very weird things about it. So
It does.
if you get off the hill, I think
It does. It's a different world.
Especially back when we were there, in the 70s, it was
Yeah.
really down at the heels and kind of falling apart.
Right, downtown was creepy.
Downtown was very creepy, and
you
the
couldn't go
whole
down there.
canal, which is now, a main tourist attraction, was all covered up by concrete. In fact, it was a
Right.
big project that
Right.
Buddy Cianci,
Oh my
the
God.
mayor of Providence,
Buddy
who was
Cianci.
put in jail and then reelected.
I used to wait on him and wait. When I was a waitress on Thayer
People
Street.
loved him.
Yes,
But
yes.
he was a little, dicey.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, or as the kids would say, sketch. It's a little sketch.
So the next question is for Carla. Have you seen the Plains Indian artwork that's made on ledger paper?
Oh, yes.
And did that have any influence on your work?
Very much so. I've been doing work on ledger paper for years, since I was like 25. So
What's
that's
ledger paper?
literally ledger paper, old ledgers. Well, that's fabric, but ledger paper. And have you seen ledger, the Plains Indians ledger drawings? They're help. Where'd you go?
Send me a link or something.
Okay. Yes, wherever you are, they have very much influenced me. And I also, just like the color of the bags, I love the color of the ledger paper as well. That creamy color always gets me going.
It's nicer than that stark hospital white.
Right.
This
It's
is,
got and it has an age to it because it's already been used as a ledger book. And of course, the Native American spiritual concerns in those ledger drawings are terrific. So yes.
Hi. I have a New Yorker question. Since Bob Mankoff left, the cartoons have changed a lot, I think. And I wonder, what's your take on what she's looking for now, what the style or the attitude is, and how is that, before Mankoff, how has that changed? You talked about the old guys wearing the suits, but what was the basic philosophy or style they were looking for in those eras?
I don't think, I think that it's more nuanced than a philosophy. I think that what humor is changes to some extent through time. What was funny in those old New Yorkers, some of the stuff, I still find Charles Adams funny, but a lot of the old stuff just, either it's like totally weird, like, missionaries or something, and cannibals, and just bizarre, or just so sexist that, like, it's not like, oh, horrors. It's more like, this isn't really funny. So I think that there's always, things that does sort of change. I don't think of it as a radical, it wasn't like Bob Mankoff's cartoon taste was this, and now Emma Allen's taste is this, but, certainly it's going to be somewhat different. People are all,
Does she
different.
decide the covers as well?
No, that would be Françoise Mouly. But ultimately, the decisions are made by David Remnick. And that is just the way it has always worked. There's an editor at the top, and then there's this sort of other editors.
Hi, this question is for both of you. How do you push through creatively when you wake up on a day and you're like, I got nothing?
I feel that way all the time. I hate everything, I hate everything I do. I hate sitting down. I'm not one of these people that just like bounds out of bed like, I stall, and then eventually I just have to get my ass out of the chair and into my studio, and things somehow, I don't know. I think partly it is deadlines, and partly it feels it's worse to not do it than it is to do it. It's just like the lesser of two evils, basically. So these are Pisanki eggs. It's a fraction of what I got sort of obsessed with doing them over the last 2 years. And I have had 2 other sort of spells of this. I had one in 2006 where I just made millions of them, and then it just stopped. And then in 2014, and then it stopped. And then just these last 2 years, I got back into it. And they're not painted. It's the Pisanki technique where you draw with wax on the egg, and it's like a batik. It's a wax resist kind of thing. So you're covering up with the wax where you don't want the dye to go. And you start with the lightest color, like white, and you work your way to black. But yeah, they're chicken eggs. So.
I'm a bounder out of bed. I'm exactly the opposite of you.
You bound out of bed?
I bound out of bed, and I have, too many ideas, and hopefully enough time left in my life to execute them. I just never-ending enthusiasm and optimism and stubbornness, and a lot of years when there wasn't attention for it. So and still did it every day anyway. It's just I can't not.
I can't not either. But I think I'm a depressive, basically.
Are you?
Yeah, and I don't want to do anything. I don't. It's just too horrible. But then but that's worse than doing it.
Right. Right.
So eventually, I don't know. Eventually, it does get done.
Right.
In spite of myself.
So either way, it gets done.
But do you think playing around with other mediums kind of helps spark something sometimes? With the eggs? And
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
If you're
and
stuck.
there are times when I feel like doing more one thing and then another thing. But just endless amounts of work, lots of crap that I make and throw out.
Oh, yeah.
And it takes, it certainly took me years to figure out my vocabulary and language and, family of imagery and have it evolve and really function all together on all 4 burners. Just takes endless work for me.
Yeah,
Constantly.
and a lot of wrong, false starts and a lot of garbage. I mean, a lot just gets generated and it's just horrible,
Pity the poor people who live with us.
Yeah, I know. How was your day?
Well, I want to thank both Carla and Roz for taking the time out and enjoying the evening with us. So if we could give them a round of applause real quick.
Thank you. Thank you.
Also, thank you to the Aldrich for coming here for this great event, because this was fantastic. So thank you all, and we will have a recording of this production on our website so people can watch it again and again and again.
Awesome.
So thank you so much, Carla and Roz.
Thanks.